Hi everyone, I'm Natalia. Welcome to my channel. And today I have an in-depth look at certain number of majors from Pensive Path Tarot by Reese, Marren. So this deck actually is a deck that I taken a look at probably last month, and there was a card which I'll share with you in majors that really struck me. And because I'm trying really not to buy any tarot decks right now, because I'm really getting into oracles, I passed it on. And then Reese, the creator, reached out to me on Instagram. Um, and she has been watching my shadow work for beginners series that I've been making. She's been really enjoying them. And she graciously offered to send me a copy of her deck. Because she felt it is suitable for shadow work. She has been very, very mindful, in my opinion, to also express to me that by no means do I have to review or talk about this deck. She still wants to send me a copy in gratitude for the content that I've been making because she has been really benefiting from it, which has been super, super kind of her. I just think in general, when creator asks you to take a look at their deck and when they tell you, upfront that you're not obligated to review it, obviously none of us are obligated to review it, but I just think it's really mindful touch. And then she said, however, if I do find it suitable or if I do enjoy it, she would love to hear about it. And I actually do find it a really, really great deck. So that's the reason why I will be talking about it. And I wanted to make this disclaimer that I did get it as a gift. I did not pay for this deck. Having said that, I honestly would not be talking about it if I did not find this deck to be amazing. So what is so amazing about this deck? First of all, this is going to be a different in-depth review because I want to add something interesting to the conversation about this deck that perhaps you haven't seen if you've been watching, because there are a lot of other reviewers who've been talking about this deck. I just want to add a little bit different interesting depths that I have observed in case if you haven't picked it up yet. I will not go over specs because you can find it online. You can probably find it on Reese's website. It comes in a really neat box that looks like a case. Card backs, and then you get, instead of a booklet, you get cards with information, including numerology as well. This is what struck me about this deck. And this is why I want to particularly talk about the genius, which is, in my opinion, is actually quite genius or quite clever in terms of how Reese decided to do majors. I'm going to focus specifically on majors because that's the cards that really jumped out at me out of a whole pack. Minors there's a lot of minors that also make me really think, but it was primarily every single card in majors that made me pause and reflect. I know that Reese also on her YouTube channel has an overview of each one of the major cards and why she chose a particular image, which I have stayed away from watching because I wanted to later watch it and see if I picked up on any reasons why she selected certain images for the majors. Now, why did I think that some of the majors, all of them, but particular one that I picked, were so clever? I am a sucker for a tarot deck at this point in my tarot collection because I have so many tarot decks, just like so many of us. I am a sucker for decks that jump out at me. What do I mean by jumping out at me? I like decks that at this point in my tarot journey make me pause and see an archetype differently. It's not enough just to render archetype completely differently or add little nuance. For me, it has to be enough where I'm looking at archetype from a different angle, almost as if it's the same archetype, but now I'm seeing it from the back. And now I'm noticing something I haven't really thought about, even though all of the thought and ideas and concepts that I'm having about particular archetype, I already had within me. To me, that's a clever way to portray and render images. I love when that happens because it enriches my experiences with tarot, because I am able to see cards in a nuanced way. Now, Reese also thinks this deck is suitable for shadow work. As you know, I don't think there's such thing as shadow work deck. And neither did she use words that this is this shadow work deck. She just thought that it would be suitable, and I agree. To me, any deck, as you know, there is balance, but also that enables you to project into it is very, very suitable, especially decks that pause, that make you pause and really reflect on the images. For example, how many times have we seen Death card portrayed as transformation only? Either butterfly coming out of cocoon or something that's being decayed back into the ground. And how many times, even though images display differently, it doesn't make you really see that archetype beyond transformation. Now, Marie White's Mary L's Tarot Death card of, and I should have gotten that card, of the close-up of this crone face staring back at you with such serenity and bliss comes to mind. That makes you look at death as part of not only evolution, but death as something to meet. And it ponders and makes you think, how are you going to meet your death? At least that's what happens for me when I look at that image. So I love when creators can do that. And I feel Reese managed to do that here for me, especially with majors. This deck, I personally plan to use only as majors because they just had such a punch for me personally. And I think that if I'm going to use them as majors only, it's going to add a very transformative experience to my readings. So without further ado, let me share with you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, over a wonderful number. 11 majors that I have selected that really struck me. Like I said, all of the majors struck me, but I don't have, it's going to be a long video if I go through all of them. So I selected the ones that just really just took me to a different dimension. And if this deck artistically is not your cup of tea, I still encourage for you to watch it because I'll be talking about the same archetypes we have in all of our decks, and perhaps it's going to add a nuance to the archetype in a way that you haven't really thought about it before. I also want to say, Reese, if you happen to watch this, I am very grateful for you approaching me, and I very appreciate your kindness in offering me this deck, again, so graciously, without any kind of, would you be willing to take a look at my deck for review versus, I want to gift it to you. And if you find it interesting, please talk about it. I thought that was really great. And I always love women who are so proactive and hustle in their business. Kudos to you, fucking great. Okay, so the first one is a magician. Now, without a doubt, we all know that a magician has all of the resources. It's an archetype of, hey, you can make anything happen. You have all of the resources at your fingertips. And a lot of times, I'm thinking about Zos magician, where he's floating up in space and he has all of the elements surrounding him, meaning you have everything at your disposal. You have all of those elementals to play with and to literally create the universe. Great. We all know magician is resourceful. Now, when I look at this card, I thought not just resourcefulness. Yes, music conductor is resourceful, but I'm also now picturing you have those resources, but what music are you going to create with them? So now I'm not just thinking about how I am resourceful, I'm thinking about what am I going to make with them? Am I going to create something beautiful, or am I going to create something that is destructive? It makes me think of a devil card that Crowley writes about, where it's the ultimate creativity in human potential, but creativity can be for good or creativity can go for evil. The same thing here. You have all of that, but what are you going to conduct? How are you going to conduct it? Who's going to listen? Who do you want to listen to your music? I love this. I have seen reviews of this. I'm going to do this ones together because they weren't to be together. I have seen some viewers, when they did walkthrough of this deck, felt expressed uncertainty why Empress and Emperor are children, and they felt like it didn't really click for them. It completely clicked for me, and I thought that this was genius. I don't know if Reese invented this to be this way. Now, Empress, for me, it is creative potential that has not yet manifested. It's a potential that is floating on a tree of life that has not been made concrete yet. Only when you combine that potential with Emperor, then it becomes concrete, because it is Emperor that has capacity to take now that beautiful potential and manifest and make it concrete. This is why they are such a beautiful pair together, because they need each other. Emperor needs Empress to imagine the landscape, and Empress needs Emperor to make that landscape a reality. Now, let's talk about children. I about to work on an inner child class on how to get in touch with your inner child. Inner child work is fascinating to me. A lot of times people look at inner child work in a different way that I do. They look at inner child work as getting in touch with the child energy within you that has been wounded as a child and healing that inner child. Some people look at inner child work as getting in touch with that child energy that you had as a child, and allowing yourself now as an adult to experience childhood aspects you didn't have a chance to have. Almost kind of regressing back into childhood. To me, inner child and connecting to my inner child has everything to do with one thing: uninhibited freedom. Because when we're children, we are without any kind of restraints. We are open to dreaming, we're open to imagine, we are open to project things in our mind that we're no longer sometimes capable when we become adults. We don't hold ourselves back. We don't care what other people think. We are in our own world and we're lost within context of our inner landscape. That's, to me, what it is to connect to your inner child. It's to connect to that freedom that as adults, we forget how to get in touch with, because as adults, we start caring too much what others think. We start worrying too much about our potential. We get anxious and fearful whether things are going to happen for us. Our ego gets in the way. This is why I love them depicted as children, because to truly step into Empress archetypal energy, one has to get in touch with that freedom to imagine without ego getting in the way and without the constraints and fears that we experience now as adults. To make all of those dreams a reality, one also has to get in touch with their inner child. And anybody who, as adult, ever been possessed by a muse, whether you were creating an art project or had an idea or were doing any kind of enterprise, you know what freedom feels like again, because for that moment, seconds, maybe days, weeks, you are in possession of a muse and you don't sleep, you often don't eat, you go through a period of complete mania because when you can't stop but think about this idea. Talk about freedom. You don't even think about what others will think about it. That comes later when ego steps in. That's us as adults, example of us as adults getting in touch with the freedom of inner child. This is why I love it. I look at them as kids and I see uninhibited freedom. And when I look at this as archetypes, I no longer think Empress, oh, there's lots of creativity. I think there's lots of creativity. And how do I get in touch with the freedom to be me? With that feeling I had as a child. This is why, and I would be curious, I have to go watch Reese's video she did on the stack, because I'm curious to know whether that's what she intended. This is what I see when I look at these archetypes. I thought this was brilliant. I have never yet seen a deck. Has anybody seen a tarot deck where Empress and Emperor are children? Usually they are adults. I think this is fantastic. Chariot. This is, I think, another one that some people said they didn't really get it, because when we think about chariot, we think about movement, think about motion, because now you are in control of your will. You are in touch with your will, with your power, and you're willing it. This chariot made me pause and reflect, because what archetypically came up for me is a different side of chariot. So I don't know if you can see, yes, there we go. There's an old woman, and she has, it's not that she had the will, but it looks like her whole, what do you call that? Caravan? Her caravan is inside of the train, right? So she's going there somewhere, but it's inside of she's on a train. Well, when I look at this archetype, I primarily look at an older woman, and I look at the wheel, which to me symbolizes woman, which hand symbolizes chariot. And what comes to mind for me is chariot is your will. It is capacity to take your will. Sorry, I have a windows brightly open because it's overcast and now light really coming in. Chariot is, yes, it is a movement. But for me, when I think about that movement in connection to our will, what are you willing forward? This makes me think carefully, what are you willing forward? Because whatever it is you're willing forward is going to be with you. It's going to be your legacy as you get older, and it's going to be there with you when you get older. So in other words, think about the intention. What is the intention behind this will? Where will this intention take you long term? I love this because this makes you stop a little bit, that speed of a chariot, and really reflect on what the intentions behind it. Now, this is a card that made me want to buy this deck when I was looking at it a while back. This is, oops, there we go, Strength card. Very interesting way to portray Strength card, and I think one of the best Strength card I have yet to see. I am honestly a little bit exhausted of seeing a Strength card as a woman and a lion. Either she's being able to open lion's mouth, or she's surrounded by lions or whatnot. Why do I love this so much? To me, strength card to me is not external strength. It is an internal strength. It's a strength that comes from within. And I feel this card does this beautifully. It's such a fantastic, fantastic card. Imagine how much of internal strength, stamina, and discipline this dog has to exercise not to eat up the sausages. This takes tremendous amount of effort. Also, this is a strength that is internal, which is controlled by your mindset, by your will. It's a strength that is responsive versus reactive. It's a very powerful strength because this takes a tremendous amount of control to be able to pull off. I love it. So great. Next one that struck me is, we were just talking about that card, right? The transformation. Here you see them walking, and look, it looks like they're having a good time. It's a death. I don't know if it's leading somebody by its arm, or to me it looks like they're dancing. To me it looks like they are springing forward. They're having a really good time, and I love this. I love this because death should be seen as not only a good time, but as what I'm thinking about is as a punk joke. Sometimes I think we're all being punked by idea of death, the way we at least perceive death, the way our ego perceives death as the ultimate ending. I feel like we're all being punked. This made me think of a quote by Epicurus. Death does not concern us because as long as we live, death is not here. And when it comes, we no longer exist. I love that quote because it's true. As long as we live, it should not concern us. It's not here. So why are some of us so consumed by the idea, existential crisis of us dying someday? This is why I found this card so fantastic, because it's a joke. It's laughable. It's a farce. It's something that shouldn't even occur, and yet occurs in our headspaces all the time. And that Epicurus quote comes to mind for me immediately. And I love it. Another card that I loved, oh God, I have them laid out over here, and I'm like trying to think which one I want to pick. Wheel of Fortune. Now, and Reese has a list of also which, who the paintings are buying, if you want to do more research. So here you see people climbing this ladder to the top. There's also a man already falling. Basically, it's a Wheel of Fortune portrayed differently, where what comes on top eventually comes down to the bottom, right? We all know that about Wheel of Fortune. It is very different when it is illustrated, in my opinion, to me, in such a way where it almost feels like a ladder, a fight to the top of the fortune, right? Versus fortune usually depicted, even if there's some people on a wheel, they're not as grouped together as in this one. This Wheel of Fortune made me think about that phrase, be careful what you wish for. A lot of times we wish for fortunate events to happen in our life. We wish for better things to happen. We wish for better karma. We wish for better outcome. And sometimes we don't reflect. How would even that alter not only us, but also alter things around us? How would us getting to the top alter the way we see ourselves? What would it give us and what would it take away? This card makes me think about lottery. When people suddenly win huge amounts in lottery, usually statistically, instead of like you would think that people would invest the money and do something with it, statistically, usually people end up spending them and then they end up being where they started off being. So all of the problems they thought that would be solved by winning their lottery have never been solved. So this is what it makes me think about. It's a prudence, the idea of prudence of thinking, yeah, you get to the top. First of all, how long are you going to stay at the top? Because everything is cyclical. Eventually, you're bound to come down. And what's going to happen when you do come down? Love this portrayal of strength. Justice. So let's actually look, well, no, let's not look at them together. I just look separately. First of all, this image, and I probably should later look up where it came from, because to me, immediately, it made me think of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. For some reason, it gave me such a sense of desperation. Just like in Crime and Punishment, when he kills that woman in order to acquire food, in a desperation. Sometimes we do things in a desperation that are just absolutely wrong. And, it becomes one of those themes of, well, what really is right, what is wrong, what is moralistic, what is not moralistic, right? It's like that story when you go to the store and you're stealing food because you are starving or your family member is starving. is theft in that instance justified by the starvation you're experiencing? It's very debatable fine line. It made me think of the fine line in justice, in overall what we perceive as what is right, what is wrong, and where is the concept of justice comes from. Because all of the concepts of what is right and wrong is made up concepts by humanity. And a lot of them obviously work. They keep our societies to some extent in line, but we have to remember that also this concept of what is moralistic, what is ethical, what is right, what is wrong is human-made constructs. So this is what I love about this card. It took me on this path of thinking about justice in this particular way, and it brought Dostoevsky novel to mind, made me think of Crime and Punishment, made me think about how much I struggled when I read it with the character dilemma, and how he was consumed with guilt of the crime that he was committed. It's just really fascinating. In fact, I think that Dostoevsky's book, Crime and Punishment, is a whole thesis on looking particularly on justice. And if one really wants to understand an archetype of justice, that book is probably one of the best books to read. I love this card. I usually don't like Moon card in tarot. It's a very elusive card for me. It's a card of illusion, delusions. A lot of times I'm not sure, is it supposed to illuminate something because Moon illuminates, or is it supposed to hide something because Moon hides? Majority of the time, this card reads for me as something is being concealed. And I see this card as a veil of concealment. Something is not being clearly seen. You walk in the night, and even though the Moon is able to illuminate certain shadows of the night, of the darkness you don't see in the light, it also conceals so much of what you otherwise would have seen in daytime. So for me, the Moon in this deck is fantastic because immediately the way it is portrayed, this winter screams concealment, screams also coldness that concealment can energetically carry with it, that coldness of not being able to see, not being able to know. This is one of my favorite Moon cards. Judgment. Justice, judgment. So judgment is opportunity at resurrecting, starting at new, rising like phoenix from ashes, right? I love this card because whether you believe in karma or not, what I love about it is how it makes, for me at least, it makes me think about how all of the actions, one way or another, have consequences, whether they have consequences in a bigger scheme or whether they have consequences within your psyche, and how we may feel like a lot of times in our actions that we're not being observed, but whether you believe that God, superior being exists that observes us, to me, this card also means that your element of your consciousness also observes your own behavior and can later spin you in turmoil and anxiety over what you did and what was your decision making, and with all hate regrets. So this brought up a different element of judgment of, again, I feel like a lot of majors here make you kind of really reflect how a lot of your behavior may affect you later in life, or how some of the consequences of those behaviors will be carried out. And finally, last card that really struck me in the majors is the World card. So this person looks like a woman, maybe a man, I don't know. Looks like they have gone through crematorium, through apocalypse, through the end of the world, and made it. I love it for the World card. Because the World card to me is about whatever it is you were going through has come to an end. And when something comes to an end, it always changes us. Now, of course, this is extreme change, right? This person has gone through apocalypse and made it to the other end kudos to them. I mean, how much more stronger are they? But it does bring up this element of look how much more resilient you are now to go through anything in front of you. Even if you're going to go through a different experience now, look, you already have gone through something that you were able to handle. And don't you think you'll be able to handle whatever comes in front of you? It makes me think of when I had cancer when I was 16 years old, something that I hold as, I see myself literally like this after I've gone through cancer, when I have difficult times in my life, because if I was able to go through that experience and come out on the other side, I can go through anything else life throws at me. I love this depiction. In Russia, we have a phrase when my mom sees people who have been through difficult times in their lives and as a result are very strong cookies and resilient, she says, well, there's one woman in particular she refers to, she says, она прошла огонь и бедные бури, which means she has gone through the fire and she has gone through a lot of fights and came through the other end. It's a phrase that symbolizes exactly this. And I think to be this person, to go through experience, and even though you came out at the end scarred and wounded and cremated, you're still here. And that's a huge testament to the power of will. So those are my absolute favorite majors. I loved all of the majors, but those were the ones that chef kiss. I love that I was showing my husband. I was telling him, explaining this card and loving it so much. And I just think that this is very, very clever. I did look at every single one of the minors. There were a lot of minors that make me stop and think the same way. But for this particular deck, I personally prefer to work with just majors. I think there's just so much richness in it for me to extrapolate from. I'd be curious to know what you see when you look at the majors, when you look at the one that I showed you, what comes to your mind. I'd be curious to know if you have this deck, what your experience has been with this deck. I'd be curious to hear all of that. I'll be curious to know if you look at the archetypes energetically in a similar way that I just did, at least from this particular deck. Again, Reese Marren, I'm very grateful to her for sending it this deck to me. By the way, first deck that I got for review, which I gotta say, is wonderful to be able to do it, especially the deck that I've been wanting to buy myself. So really, really grateful for that. And I will link obviously below Reese's information as well as her YouTube channel where she goes through the cards. And now I'm gonna go on and check out her channel because I now want to see whether she, because I've been trying so badly not to watch, but I was so curious to see what did she intend with those majors, and I want to see how much of what I picked up actually coincides with what she intended. So it would be very fascinating to observe and see. Again, great deck. I think if you want to use it for shadow work, obviously look how much I projected into just majors alone. Obviously you can do. I think this is very unique and clever. Clever way to depict things. Clearly somebody who knows tarot very well. So anyways, here we go, Pensive Path Tarot, and thank you guys, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.